Yes, indeed.
What's up, fella?
Oh, man. Nothing.
It's been so long.
Has it?
It's been weeks.
Not long enough.
Weeks.
Yeah, I know.
As far as I know, you spent Thanksgiving out in the woods chasing animals and eating their live, raw carcasses. That was your Thanksgiving.
How'd you know?
And then you brought their remains to your patients that you oversee, and they were none the wiser.
Nope. Yep. They're gnawing on the bones right now.
And you looked smirkingly at them with the feathers and pasty digestive fluids hanging off their lips because they just didn't know what you were doing.
Nope. Oh, did you have a good Thanksgiving? Has it been that long?
I don't know. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know when. Hard to say. I've been editing shows, so I don't know. I kind of feel like you're always with me, Marc, and you are the closest thing to Jesus Christ in my life. So.
Really? The bar's set pretty low there for you, buddy.
Wow. Well, so you were saying you wanted to talk about some of the best releases of 2023, but I don't think I know that many.
Yeah,
Or do I?
yeah. So I sort of just I sort of dropped it after that. So no, I don't really have anything. Although I will say, I mean, it's been kind of like the back end of 2023 was sort of uh kind of loaded with some classic death metal, from established bands. So like Cryptopsy, Suffocation, and Dying Fetus put out albums,
Yeah, that's right. I
within
haven't
about a
listened to
month
any
of
of
each
those,
other.
but those aren't really my bands that I listen to. But yeah, I haven't heard any of that stuff. Did you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all good, and it's those are bands that are at a point where it's like it's hard for them to put out a bad album,
Are you
because
sure about that?
unless they go completely into left field, which they never do.
Oh, some bands do.
Yeah, but they don't. Those Cryptopsy. There's always a risk, I think, because they tend to uh, sort of try to kind of push boundaries and stuff like that. But something like Dying Fetus or Suffocation doesn't matter. I mean, you know, you can you can like albums better than the other, but to deny that it's just a solid Suffocation album every time, or Dying Fetus, because those two bands are not going to be, putting out some kind of weird experimental type thing. Same with Cannibal Corpse,
That's interesting because you are listening to Mentally Challenged with Marc, Weirdly Experimental Hansen, and J.R. Torina, the Master Butcher, of course.
Mm.
Or are you experimentally weird?
Experimentally challenged.
It could be that too.
The same with,
Well,
like I said, same with Cannibal Corpse. It doesn't matter, like, whether you like Barnes era or Corpse Grinder era or one album over the other. The idea that like one album like just sucks, you know what I mean? It's not possible, because if you like Cannibal Corpse, every album sounds like Cannibal Corpse.
It's interesting.
They're not putting out like a synthwave album or anything like that. I mean, although Blood Incantation did that, I haven't checked it out, so I might have to check it out. But
I have, I think Possessed. I can't remember. Let me bring up BNR Metal Pages. Possessed new album is it came out either this year or last year. The thrash band Possessed.
Oh yeah.
And they were just here about a week ago, and they played at Aces High.
Did you go?
Oh wow, that's from 2019. Shit, that's old.
That was their last album, yeah.
Fuck. Why are they touring? What are they doing?
That's what they do.
Well, I just thought they tour for the support of the album, and then they just kind of do whatever. But that's kind of crazy. Fuck, I didn't know that was that old, but I guess I have heard it on Pandora every now and then
But
the
if you think
past little
about
while.
it, like, they put out an album in 2019, and then a few months later, we have that ridiculous pandemic. So I mean, a lot of bands are probably
Was
having
that
to.
in 2019 or that was earlier, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Wasn't COVID like 16, 17 around there or
No, no, it was around like it was
18?
2019.
No, whatever. I don't remember anymore, but
Yeah,
well,
or
that's
as I
funny
like to call it, the
because
scamdemic.
what?
Scamdemic.
Scamdemic, huh? Here we go. The Fox News. Goddamn Biden, right, Mark?
No, that was Trump, man. Um, in the
Well, okay, with that, first of all, the wearing of the mask, it's not to prevent you from getting sick, it's to keep you from spewing your shit everywhere else. And I'll tell you, and I've said this before, I've never been healthier than during the pandemic. I didn't even have sore throat at all. And I always get sore throats because I talk to the public every day at my work. So I don't love wearing masks, but like when we did, I noticed I never was sick. Like not only COVID,
uh,
but like sore throat, any of that shit, nothing. But be all that as it may, I think it's kind of funny now when because we still have customers who come in like this, like kid and his girlfriend will come in, they'll wear a mask like every time. I'm like, why are you? And then it's funny because it has the reverse effect. You start to feel like, why are you wearing a mask? You fucking sick? Get the fuck away from me.
oh
So you
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of tend to keep your distance. And you're like, oh yeah, get the fuck. Or you're just like, come on, it's
Hmm.
2000, it's 23. Let's go. Like, get over that shit. You don't need to wear that anymore. Fuck.
Yeah, we're moving on.
But I was gonna
No, but
say,
but I
like
think that's
China,
why.
this was like an X Files, like a little back page news nugget, like on the X Files movie, where like China
Hmm.
sheepishly admitted that COVID was created in the lab and it kind of escaped,
Yeah.
and nothing was ever said about that. I'm like, that was my theory the whole time. Is like they had that uprising of the kids in Hong Kong that were like protesting, they wouldn't leave, and the military were like firing shots over their heads to scare them, and it didn't
Hmm.
work. I was watching this on the news up until the pandemic, and then all of a sudden, you didn't hear anything about that at all ever again. And then a week later, there was a COVID epidemic, and then it was
Hmm.
just COVID, 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 like nonstop for 4 years, and Trump and COVID and Biden. It's just all this shit. And like, what happened to that uprising? China, like, what happened there?
Yeah, the Uyghurs. Yeah. Um, no, but what I was kind of going back to the point was like that did happen around 2019. So a lot of people, a lot of bands that had albums released right before the pandemic have torn. Were never able to tour behind it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I
So
thought Possessed had toured for that because I know we got into an argument because I could swear they at least did one-off show where Larry Lalonde was back in the band playing, and he's not in the band, but I could swear there was a show where he was with them. But
he might have, he might have joined him on stage. He's finally gotten to the point where he doesn't have to like hide the fact that he was from Possessed. Because I remember during when Primus was peaking, man, they just he just never mentioned it. I mean, I think he occasionally would, but it would always be like a sort of a dismissal, like, yeah, I was just in some dumb thrash band. But
well, yeah, but I mean, it wasn't really relevant to him at that point because he's a rock star. But now, going back on that, it's even more likely that Possessed could become more popular, possibly, but probably not.
mhm.
But you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I mean
It's
they're
just
doing pretty good though. Like there's sort of been like sort of a reappreciation for, I mean that album's always been sort of revered, the Seven Churches, as sort of a almost like a proto death metal
oh, it
kind of
is
thing.
that album and Death, Scream Bloody Gore. Those two were thrash records, but they were heavy as fuck,
Mhm.
which is what I noticed about him back then, as well as the vocals, because you didn't have like the shouting, hardcore-ish kind of like
Mhm.
like Slayer, like that kind of stuff. It was more like there's that throaty growl. Like that was the first time
Mhm.
you heard that. It was Death and Possessed, both of them.
Mhm. Right.
So yeah, that those were the and they even have a song called death metal back then, which at the time nobody like called metal death metal. It was just thrash,
Yeah.
except for Bathory. And I've told that story before too. Bathory always referred to his music as death metal way back when too, and now it's known as the progenitor of black metal.
Mhm.
But anyways, Possessed was here and they played at Aces
Aces.
High, which I had never been there. Pretty cool bar. I saw our boy Jake there. He works there.
Oh, cool.
He's a bartender there. I told you I bumped into him at the grocery store. He told me to come by, but I just haven't been able to. And I kind of want to do like my metal DJ nights again, but do them there. 'Cause I used to do them at this stupid bar like downtown or like on 21st South. It was run by these two Asian guys who had no fucking clue what was going on. They were serving like old stale beer, and everybody thinks that company or that bar was like a front for like something else.
The Genos?
No, it was on.
Oh, 21st Sound. Never mind.
It was on 21st, hitting towards like about Third West. I cannot remember the name of that fucking bar for the life of me, but it was like this big building. It was like this faceless building. You know where the K2 church was over there?
Oh yeah. It was across the street from that.
Yeah, you used
I
to come
f-
to those shows. What was the name of that
yeah.
fucking bar?
No, I remember we saw.
I have flyers for it. I mean, I could probably dig it up and find it. I don't care
I
that
think I
much.
might
But
have
yeah,
seen Malignant Inception there, or I don't, or.
yeah, there were shows there once in a while, but
Mhm.
and Greg used to work there. Like he was the sound guy there. But that was where my Conan the Barbarian DVD mysteriously disappeared, and
Uh,
but I got another one. It's all right. But anyways, Possessed played, and they were really good. Jeff was in his wheelchair. He's
mhm.
got an all new band, just younger guys, except for there was one dude that looked a little older. I could swear it was one of the guys from Testament, but I don't know Testament very well, so it probably wasn't. But it was an older guy with a bunch of young kids and Jeff, and they were tight. I mean, he played all the classics. And here's an interesting thing: is number one is we had Nunslaughter opening for them.
Yeah,
Do you like Nunslaughter at all?
I'm not terribly familiar with them. I mean, I know
You
the
bear a
band.
striking resemblance to their singer once again.
I do.
So there's the frontline assembly drummer that you look like, except he was more buff and had tattoos and black hair. And this guy from Nunslaughter, like you guys kind of look like you could be brothers. But Nunslaughter's from Ohio, if I remember correctly. They're like old school. They're like way back.
Mhm.
Like Possessed. They're going back to the thrash days pretty much. One of their main members, Jim, has he died a couple of years ago now. But they're still around. They were pretty good live, and they were pretty tight. And I think the general consensus of all my friends that went was that Nunslaughter was actually better than Possessed,
Really?
which is a little strange. But Nunslaughter was there, and then here's the real interesting part: is the opening band. There was an opening band. I can't remember if it was local or not. I didn't make it in time because I had to work. But the opening band before them was Black Moriah, which is that band you and I talked about, the Texas black thrash band.
Okay.
You know the one I said I almost signed to the label. The guy used to be in Absu.
Okay. I vaguely
Yeah, you
remember the
remember that?
conversation.
Well, I caught the end of their set because we were pretty late, but they were pretty good live, and it didn't quite come across as like so much like Absu as it just did just like thrash, but still kind of the same thing. But after the show, I went back and I should have got like well, there's another story there, but I was talking to the guy, and it turns out he was the guy that I had been talking to a few years ago. He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember you," and he's like, "Hey, if you want to re-release our first album, we're almost out of them, and just do it with you if you want." I'm like, "Yeah, maybe."
There you
Shit
go.
sucks these days, and we got into a big discussion about how like the music industry kind of sucks, and he's like, "Yeah, totally, man."
The music industry had never not sucked, though. I mean, let's not
Well,
kid
just how it is
ourselves.
now, it's like, you know, because I was thinking about that. I'm like, if I wanted to make some money, I could bring my entire like storage room to that show, and I could probably sell a lot of shit.
Mhm.
But I'd undercut all the bands, and they wouldn't like that. And a lot of bands don't even want people to do that, other than who's on tour with them. So I can understand that. So,
Oh yeah, totally. I wouldn't be happy about it, I'm sure.
but I was. What sucks about that is I should have bought more of their records because not only was I thinking I could have just bought a few at wholesale if he was willing to do that, just to sell them in the catalog, but I wanted to get you the vinyl, but I didn't think about it because I'd already got you a Christmas present, but now you're not getting it because I'm not getting it. So,
That's all right.
so I ordered that Triumph of Death thing with Tom Warrior,
Uh-huh.
and I got like this version and that version, and I also got a few copies of the Celtic Frost because I did this with Noise Records in Germany. I ordered a few copies of the Celtic Frost Vanity Nemesis, one for me and one for you.
Oh.
And I didn't get the box. I'm like, what the fuck? And I looked it up, and like I remember I got an email that said that they were sending it to me. I'm like, well, yeah, that was in the end of September. Like, where the fuck is it? It's December now. It's like halfway through December. So I know it's coming from Germany, but shit.
Yeah, no worries, man.
So anyway, I emailed him. I'm like, well, yeah, where's this order at, man? And I don't know. I got like an automatic response. It's just like, we got your email. We'll check into it. So then I emailed him again, like, what the fuck? Where's my order? And like, somebody just emailed me back and said, gee, we don't know. Sorry, we're gonna refund you.
Oh, that's all right,
So I got
man.
a refund, but I'm like, so I don't know if someone stole it. It says they shipped it, so I'm kind of wondering if someone stole it off my doorstep. But I've had other packages delivered here that didn't get stolen. So,
Hmm.
but that wasn't a big box of records either. That was just like energy drinks and shit. So.
Ah,
So, anyways, yeah, I was going to get the biggest new record of the year, the Triumph of Death, Tom Warrior thing, and now I don't get it at all. Not to mention all the shit that I was going to give you, the
oh,
shirts and like the Vanity Nemesis, and like I got nothing. So I'm like, well,
ah,
there goes that.
you don't need to get me nothing because I kind of haven't gotten you anything yet either.
Well,
But
that doesn't matter. I mean, the point is we talked about Vanity Nemesis, and they had it in there. They didn't have a Cold Lake, but they had Vanity Nemesis. So I was like, yeah, I should pick one up for me and one for Marc. And
and I bet they're working on something special for the Cold Lake like reissue. You know,
you keep saying
they're
that, but
sitting
I
on
just
that.
don't think that's why would
They're
he
just
do that when he's doing all this dark, like mystical, magical shit right now? It's
you know.
I don't think he's gonna do it. Like, and the label doesn't. I mean, really, to be honest with you, I think it would sell, and I think by now most of the hardcore fans like me have kind of gotten over it. And we'd probably buy it anyway, but
Hmm.
because it's just something that Tom Warrior did, it doesn't matter, And
No, I think I guarantee it's probably going to happen. Probably like some kind of very limited sort of fine. Like for all you weirdos that need this album. But like I said, I mean it's part of his legacy, whether he wants to admit it or not.
yeah, this Triumph of Death thing, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's people from Triptychon with him, and I'm
Mhm.
guessing they're doing Hellhammer stuff because Triumph of Death is a Hellhammer song. I'm not even 100% sure what that project was about, but I just bought it and now I'll never know. It's like, well, fuck, that sucks. Fucking bullshit. Like, I wonder if someone just stole it off my porch. That's crazy because they say they shipped it. So, and it came to my house. I don't usually do that.
Mhm.
I usually have it shipped to work where I work, but I don't know unless they fucked up and didn't actually send it or sent it somewhere else by mistake or I don't know. But yeah, I'm not getting it. So,
I mean, they didn't send like if they said they shipped it, they should have sent like a tracking number, right? Or no?
well, they did, and I looked up on their site and it just said it was shipped and like it was completed. The order was completed. I'm like, no, it fucking wasn't. That says that happened in October. I'm like,
But
okay, well,
it didn't have a tracking number like a postal like from a carrier.
well, no, because well, it may have, but I mean, it's coming from Germany and they tend to use the couriers.
Well, yeah, but they still usually have a way to track it. Like there's like a number you can plug in.
Yeah, I did that with the Celtic Cross box set because that took forever to get here. Like I know people who ordered it like after me and they got theirs, and I still was waiting for mine. I finally got it, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't do all that. I just saw the thing that said the delivery was completed. I'm like, well, I don't have it, and that's when I just emailed them. And I mean, I could try that, but I mean, what does it matter now? Because where is it going to be?
Yeah, and if they've already refunded you, then what? Well,
And that's kind of funny. I'm just wondering though too. Like, what if I get home and it's on my doorstep one night and they refunded me? I'm like, oh shit.
I know you'll do the honest thing.
I probably would. I am that kind of
Yeah,
guy.
I know
I,
that.
I wouldn't be able to live with myself stealing like that. But then again, I could be like, well, postage, fuck, fuck them. Then they owe me at least. So.
No. I mean, you being in the mail order business know how screwed up that can get sometimes. So,
Well, coming from there, it's not so bad. It's just from here to anywhere else is the problem.
mhm.
So, I mean, it's a lot everywhere, but it's more here to go out than it is vice versa. But anyways, Triumph of Death, Tom Warrior's new band. I do not know. I have not heard it, and I haven't looked it up on YouTube. But now I'm not going to get it. But that's one release of 2023 that I think was probably going to be pretty good, maybe. Um, wasn't particularly a huge fan of Triptychon so much, but one of my friend Paul from Baphomet sent me a bunch of their stuff because I could to check out. Cause he's like, no, it's good. You got to hear it. I'm like, because I bought their first record, and I was like,
Hmm.
it's without Martin Ain on bass from Celtic Frost, it's not the same thing, And I know it's not trying to be Celtic Frost, but it kind of is in a way. It's just something he went off and formed when they broke up again because he got mad about something, and it just doesn't resonate the same for me. It's heavy and dark and all that, and it's him on vocals and guitar. But I mean, apart from that, it's kind of just seems like it's lacking something to me. But maybe I'm just too jaded.
Well, yeah, and then once again, a lot of times you have like your preference for certain material actually is attached to a certain time of your life, you know, and the fact that you're not there anymore, you're not that age, you're not in that situation. Even if he puts out something that's as equally as good as anything back then, the fact that you're not in that same headspace, it's not ever going to be the same, you know.
Well, that's part of it. But I mean, Martin Ain brought something to the band that is undeniably made it Celtic Frost. So that's the thing, and that's why when he did Cold Lake, and it was so not putting aside the glam aspect of it, it was just so like no thanks. But then Martin Ain returned for Vanity Nemesis, which is probably why that album, now that I've heard a little bit of it, is like so much heavier and a little bit more engaging. But then their comeback album, Anatheus, that was pretty good too, and Martin Ain was on that. But I don't know, they had a falling out again, and he went off and did Triptychon, and to me, it's just like it's kind of a little bit like he's trying a little too hard to be super dark and super heavy almost. That's just kind of how it feels. I don't know.
Mm, kind of an overcorrection.
I don't know. It just like I said, I haven't heard all of this stuff again, and I have the other albums. I should probably listen to the other records again and just give them another spin. But like initially, I was just like, I don't know. It's just long, heavy, dark songs, and just everything's tuned down, super heavy, and like it's just doesn't seem like it's the thing. I don't know. I'm probably like the only person in the world that's saying that, but now I'm like, well, you went glam, now you're too dark and too heavy, and so
I know you just can't please. There's no pleasing you, man.
there really isn't. I hate everything.
It's a damn shame.
I was born, the doctor pulled me out and said, this guy hates everything. I was like, fuck you. I'm still sleeping. Put me back in there. Goddamn doctor. They hate doctors.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of doctors. I mean, there's you
Well, I
know,
was just
to
kidding,
me
but
it's just like, look, can you write me a prescription or not? That's really what it comes down to.
oh,
So,
a prescription, huh?
prescription? It's a prescription. It's a prescription.
It's prescription, but is that all you like your doctors for? Is just drugs? You
That's all they're good for. What else are
see,
they gonna
that's all
do?
they do today. Doctors, they'll see you, then they'll go, oh, you need this and this, and they get their little kickbacks from the drug companies for prescribing it. So,
Yeah, maybe.
well, anyways, here's a few other releases. I mean, I've been mostly buying new records, but like demos and tapes and stuff by pretty much underground black metal bands.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about a
So
couple.
there's one called Oblivion Castle, and I was just the cover of this was weird because it's just got these two girls, and it's like a painting, like a classical painting of two girls,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gives you like a baroque kind of painting feeling, but the one is leaning against the other girl. They're not doing anything sexual or anything, but it implies that kind of like in a
Mm-hmm.
like a Lady Camilla kind of way, like the earliest vampire story.
I'm looking at the cover right now.
And it's called Witch's Lament in the Moonlight, and it's not like the most technically proficient, like accomplished thing. I believe it's one guy. So for 10 songs, it's brutal, like death, black metal with like a doom metalish kind of edge to it and some ambience in it. It's really good.
All right.
And there's low and high vocals. It's like a pretty good record. It comes across as black metal, but then there are other
Well,
songs that are
it's
purely
okay.
death
So
metal.
it's a female one man band.
Oh, it is?
Yes, sir.
Are you
So
sure about that? I don't think it is. I have the
okay.
tape. I bought the tape itself. I haven't actually opened the tape yet because I have it on. I have the digital file, but
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have a tape player, so I don't have a reason to open the tape. But But yeah, that was pretty good. And then there's another band called Fire Messiah that I like, who are, I don't know where they're from, but they're an unusual band that do just, and again, it's like black metal mostly, but there's some death metal elements, but there's a lot of keyboards, but the keyboards are like weird. Like there's just, it's like Devo almost in some points. It's like if Devo's keyboardist decided to totally go evil black metal, that's what this sounds like. So it's pretty interesting. And their logo has a pair of scissors in it, and there's just regular letters. You know, they're like these burnt looking letters. They're not like scrapey, drippy, or anything like that. Or so I have two of their things that came out this year: Calamity and Subliminal Horrors, and those are pretty good. Fire Messiah. And then there's another band, and I totally don't know. Let's see, it's Ysbrydnos. Ysbrydnos or something to that effect. I have no fucking idea,
Okay.
but I think it's Gaelic or Celtic or something, but they are from England.
They look dark and scary.
And their original demo I got like last year had like flutes and like just kind of some medievalish kind of elements, but like from a really like almost Irish kind of perspective. In fact, I think they might be from Ireland. I can't remember, but
They're from Wales.
oh, okay, they are from England then. Okay. They had a few demos come out. There was another one I got earlier this year that had, it was just like keyboard stuff. It was all like this medieval sounding what's the term? What's the just electronic stuff?
Ambient?
Well, no, I was thinking what's analog. It's almost like
Yeah.
really, really cheesy MIDI analog sounding stuff. Like
Yeah,
literally, when I heard
kind of
that
synth
demo,
wave-ish, maybe.
yeah, like dungeon synth is what the term is, like for black metal that goes keyboard like that.
Okay.
So it's a full album of just dungeon synth, but it was such analog equipment, and the way they did it, it sounds like Doom, like the old Doom video game, the music from that.
Okay.
And I thought that was cool, and it's a little bit cheesy, but I love that kind of stuff. And then their next record, they have a little bit of both styles. They're back to the black metal, and the black metal is really good on that. But they have stuff on their previous releases where it's black metal, but it has flutes, it'll have mandolins, just all kinds of instruments. And it's just really eclectic, but it's a pretty hard pill to swallow if you're not into black metal, because it's pretty hard black metal.
Hmm.
And apart from that, I got another black metal. There's a band called Claws of Moriis, Moriis.
Claws of Moriis.
So it's like Mortis, but without the T. And I'm like, well, Maurice, that sounds like a guy who works at like the French restaurant downtown. You
Right,
know, I'm like,
exactly.
wait a minute, is he doing black metal
Yeah,
now?
man, you don't want his claws in you.
You sure don't. After handling escargot, that's a lot of bacteria. Well, anyway, Claws of Moriis or Moriis is from Russia, and they do really good raw black metal. He has a new release this year, and it also features a few synth tracks that like amazingly good. Like you wouldn't even think it was a one-man black metal band from Russia. It's just this really good ambient track, but there's some really good raw black metal.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you're into that kind of thing, then that's really good. Then of course Godflesh put out a new album called Purge. That's really great. Sounds like their old stuff, kind of like a little mix of their old and later stuff.
Okay.
That's a really heavy record, just like bass and like the drum machine as usual, Justin's vocals, like just yelling vocals. Frontline Assembly had an album out I picked up at the show when they were here earlier this year. Mechanical Soul.
And they're like they're
I think your
industrial.
boy plays on that one. What's his
Tim
name from
Skull.
Shotgun Messiah? I don't know if he's on the album or not, but I thought he was. But
Yeah, Tim Skull.
is he on that?
I mean I don't know if he's on the album. Like I'm
He
not
may have
into
just
the
like put
industrial
a few
things.
licks in there, but I don't know if he was a part of the band. Maybe they didn't list him as a part of the band. But
They have a new
uh,
album out.
what's that?
Their new album. I can go check and see what their new album has.
But they have another new album out or coming out very soon. But this one, Mechanical Soul, I picked up at the show. I assumed it was their newest one. And then Misery Inc. is actually Paul Gilbert from Baphomet here in Salt Lake City, but this is his industrial project where it's just him doing ambient music.
Okay.
And it's pretty interesting because Paul is a drummer by nature, so his ambient has drums in it. And I like said, you should try to do one without drums too and just see how it goes. And it's pretty cool. It's not out yet, but these ones are pretty good. There's it's called In Nothing, and there's another one, actually two. No, there's one more follow up to it.
On a side note, what an unfortunate name for someone who does like dark music or whatever, Paul Gilbert. Every time I hear that name, I just think of the guitar player of Mr. Big and Racer X.
Well, they're ripping off this Paul Gilbert because they know he's a black metal superstar. So fuck those guys.
Whatever. Paul Gilbert's
I hurt
awesome.
your feelings. I hurt your feelings.
You hurt nothing.
And then my own project, Nova Device, some kick-ass industrial metal, has a few new albums out. One is old tracks I recorded back in like 2005 and 6, some old sci-fi stuff. And then the other one is like brand new stuff. Like it's called Vampire is the new one. Vampire that's the newest one I just put up, and the other one is called the Zodiac Files, where it's all this really hard industrial metal, like sci-fi samples all over the place. And that's easily the best recording of 2023. Those two right there. But as far as the actual other metal bands, like I've really been into the black metal stuff. So I've got like other bands like Nocturnal Effigy, The Night's Sorrow is a good record. There's a couple other really underground black metal bands, but I have not really heard any of the bigger bands. Like I haven't heard the Dying Fetus, but they're not exactly my go-to thing, But
yeah, I mean it's like I said, it's what Dying Fetus sounds like though, and that's what you get when you get a Dying Fetus album, So, which is to me it's interesting, like the whole death metal thing, especially like that traditional death metal, like that sort of Dying Fetus, Suffocation kind of American is like it's such a, I don't even want to say limiting, but it is. There's like constraints you have to stay within to play like good old school death metal, right? Which is why, in a weird way, it's like its own like built-in quality control. If you're gonna call yourself a death metal band like that, you don't get to go out and do like some kind of, you don't get to put out an album of power pop or industrial. You know what I mean? It's got to be groovy, heavy death metal. Which is why the albums I think are consistently good, because that's what they're expected to do, and that's the limitations they put on themselves. They don't get to go outside of the formula too much.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
So that's why, like, it's always interesting to me when like someone will say like, yeah, I love the first 3, Cannibal Corpse albums, but they started to suck after that. And you're like, what? They didn't, like, nothing really changed, They may have gotten better at play. You become better players. That's expected. But the music didn't, like, the style has not changed at all, Once again, you can prefer albums over the other, but the idea of like they started to suck or they don't, they don't, that's really weird to me, especially with death metal, whether it's the first Suffocation album or the last one and everything in between. It's all suffocation. It all sounds like suffocation,
Well, you're not picking up on the nuances of those things, I think. You're
there's
coming
no
out of
nuance in
kind of
death
like an
metal. That's the
outsider.
thing, dude.
Huh?
There's no nuance in death metal.
There is, though. It's we've had this conversation billions of times. It's like, take Suffocation, for example. Their first album was an EP called Human Waste. It was brutally heavy. It was really good, so heavy. The drums just crush you, and every song had a different identity. But when they went to Morrisound, they did those songs plus a new batch all in one album and redid them, and it was totally not that heavy. It was really light sounding, and like the drums were like really triggered and less heavy, and it was totally different thing.
You're talking about like
Effigy of the Forgotten.
Well, no, I mean, but you're talking about production, though. I mean, you can sit and say like, well, the production is thin or blah blah blah.
Well, that's been my thing, is like they played some of the same songs and had some new songs, but it just got muddled in the production there. It's like I keep saying, Morrisound, I think they were like, why is it so heavy? Turn that down. And
musically, though,
they didn't understand grind and death there at Morrisound. I think they were more worried about making it sound like Dream Theater. So
what?
You heard me.
But
Scott Burns did not know what the fuck he's doing. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Fuck that guy.
I love Scott Burns. In fact, he's got an autobiography out now. That's gonna be I'm gonna.
It talks about how he purposely ruined all the death metal bands.
Exactly.
Yeah, Napalm Death really got castrated when they came down to my studio.
And he said he did it specifically to piss off JR.
Well, it feels that way.
But no, Jeff. I mean, what was I saying? Oh, Scott Burns is rad, dude. Very mellow, dude.
Speaking of new releases, is I've read Shane Embry of Napalm Death. His book just came out. I bought that, and I just finished reading it. And he doesn't burn on Scott Burns. He doesn't bring him down or anything. But he says that, I don't think that was the best thing for Napalm.
Even Scott Burns admits that. The guy is like super humble.
They went down there because Mickey, their drummer at the time, Mick Harris, was totally into American death metal. And he wanted to go down there and just record at that studio and just kind of play that kind of music. That's why their music immediately morphed into that kind of stuff. But
no, I think honestly, like the hate for Scott Burns is pretty unfair, because if you know his story, he didn't set out to be the death metal guy, really. It's like he just fell into it, he was an assistant or an engineer at Morrisound.
Stop right there. That's my point. Is he didn't set out to do it. He didn't really know much about it, and you can tell when you listen to his recordings because he neuters all the bands that go there.
No, what he tried to do, I think, was
brutally amazing when they started, and he turned them into this weak, watered down thrash band when they came out with Effigy of the Forgotten.
No, dude.
Sorry,
but
it's still metal, but it's not anywhere near as heavy as brutal as their first one.
I think what he was trying to do, especially, was commendable. He tried, and I think for better or worse, I think he succeeded in making death metal something listenable. You know what I mean? You may call
for people who were kind of pussies, though. So
people like me, dude.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's you came at it from outside in. You weren't there from the beginning like I was. So you came at it like you were listening to glam and Dream Theater. So when you came in, it was more accessible for you to hear Effigy of the Forgotten. If you had heard Human Waste first by Suffocation, you'd be like, oh, God, this is way too brutal. I can't handle that.
I wouldn't have been able to handle it. Yeah, exactly.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not even trying to be rude or condescending.
You are trying to be rude, but I think that overall is good for the death metal scene. And that first Obituary album he did, no one's shitting on that production. They love it. And even Scott Burns, I've listened to some interviews with him recently, and he's like, yeah, there's some albums that are kind of, I miss the mark on, and then there's others that sound really good. The first Sepultura album is kind of what put him on the map. Once people heard that, they wanted Scott Burns, and that's how he kind of became the death metal guy.
That seems to be a common occurrence too with producers.
And he's like, I kind of, and he wasn't even really a producer. He even said, he's like, I don't write music. I don't try to dictate. He's like, I try to just get the performance and make it sound as good as I possibly can with the resources that they have. The budgets were not big for death metal, but I think overall, no, I think good, clean production.
That kind of stuff happens with the producer, and it happens with labels. People, one band gets picked up by a big label that another small label had. That happened to me. I had Lavatory from Malaysia on my label, the first band I've ever dealt with outside of just Salt Lake City, and they immediately got picked up by Pulverized Records. Mm-hmm. So all these other bands from Asia started immediately swamping me with their demos because they thought they were going to get this huge releases. And plus, then I became a cult sensation overnight over in Asia. But I didn't do anything in particular. It's just they had already been watching Lavatory, that pulverized label, and I mean, whatever. I mean, it happens like that with producers. Like Kiss would always say, "Oh, who did this last album?" Like, it was the Destroyer record. They went to that guy. Like, I totally cannot even. Every time I talk to you, I like get a mental blank. It's like you suck out my brain energy. You know, it's.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Bob Ezrin produced Destroyer, and like he had produced a bunch of other successful albums, and like the same with the guy who produced Van Halen and like Motley Crue. A lot of people started going to them. It's the same with
Ted Templeman.
Yeah, and the same with like metal producers. It was like everybody started going to Scott Burns, and then everybody for a while was going to Titan up in Norway to Grieg Holland Studios, because that's where one band went first, like I think Mayhem or somebody, and then everybody else started going there to do that too. And it wasn't like he didn't even know black metal, but he got to know it by doing all that. And Peter from Hypocrisy, you know, that's a different story there, because Peter's born tried and true metal. He knows what the fuck. So everybody started going to Abyss Studios with Peter in Sweden. And that's different, because Peter knows how to produce, he knows how to play, and he knows metal. So that's a whole different thing. But then everybody started going there too.
Like the new, you know, I don't know if I'd even say he's new, but kind of like the metal guy right now, who's at the top of the heap, is Andy Sneap.
Yeah.
You know, who's produced like the last couple of Judas Priest albums, the Accept albums.
Now he's metal too, because he used to play in that band Sabbath from England, the UK.
Yeah. So he knows his shit.
And he was in Priest.
But you know, going back to Scott Burns, like I said, like for that time, you know, the technology that he had, I think he did an excellent job. Like death metal, the reason why, like, okay, so you see this, you know, the productions are thin or whatever, but what it allowed, at least, you know, like in my head, is like death metal music is actually even like simple, like primitive death metal music is technically like harder to play than just about, you know, any form of popular music, you know. And you know, I think the musicians, they practice so hard, they practice so long on that to come up with these like crazy riffs and everything like that. To bury it in like shit production is a disservice, man. That stuff deserves to be heard, you know. So maybe his productions were a little on the thin side, but the fact that you could hear what was going on and go, holy shit, you know, I can't believe it playing like this. You know,
that may be so, but I mean,
that
it's still,
I think,
it's like,
you know, and then when
totally took the bottom end out of it. Then you can still have a heavy bottom end and have heavy production, like Nile does it. Why couldn't he do it? It's like that suffocation record. I was blown away. I'm like, what the hell happened?
And Nile came along a lot later. By that time, like the production, like the equipment and techniques were improving. Like there was nothing, there wasn't really there wasn't a way to approach death metal before Scott Burns, honestly. I mean, he was the entry point to actually making production a point in death metal. So, I mean, you can love him or hate him, but the fact that there are good, you know, sounding death metal albums after Scott Burns is almost directly because of his experimentation of trying to figure it out, trying to get this wall of sound to be something that you can pick out parts and hear what's going on. You know, so in that sense, he's a pioneer. So the pioneer, you know, like, and that's what a pioneer does. I mean, they don't get it right all the time, but they lay a foundation that are built on after that, you know. So there's a lot of stuff that Scott Burns probably like techniques are being used today, but they're just being compensated for, you know, maybe that lack of low end they keep talking about or whatever. You know, they're filling in the gaps, but before Scott Burns, there was no one that could figure it out, and it just sounded like garbage, you know. I mean, yeah, there's a certain charm to that shit, you know, the shitty audio But for me, like a musician, I mean, I use that term loosely. I don't know if I'm a musician. I want to hear what's fucking going on, because death metal is
All right. Well,
impressed.
I'm not saying it has to be a brutal wall of noise. I mean, I'm the
You are
suffocation
though.
human. I'm not human waste. When they put that out, it's heavy. It's a little bit like not distorted, but I mean, it's just a little bit rough sounding, but not too much that you notice it. That's how death metal should sound. And then when they went to Morrisound for their next one, I get what you're saying, and you're
No,
making my
and
point
even
for me. Is
dude,
he cleaned it up so you could hear everything, but
if
by
you hear
doing that,
Scott
it
Burns
lost its
talk about that
heaviness.
suffocation album he doesn't like it either. Like he was, he'll be the first to admit that he fucked it up. He fucked some albums up. Like he didn't like, there's stuff that he can't even listen to that he's done, that it's just like, oh man,
Well,
I
let's
blew it.
okay, shift gears for a minute here, and like let's look at Kiss.
Because
Like
because
Kiss.
listen, okay, like so yeah, if it's Years Forgotten, that's the one that everybody just says was just garbage production, right? No low
I
end.
don't know if everybody says that. I don't say garbage production. I just say it's
No, but
weak
it
and
but it, it
expanded.
is it is the Suffocation album that is kind of known that everybody kind of just the production, right? But Scott Burns also did Pierce from Within, which sounds killer,
Pierce
right?
from Within sounded a lot more rough, and
Right.
maybe that was the band going in there and saying, "Hey, make this a little
Or
heavier." Like,
or it was a few years later and Scott Burns was like, okay, I'm not going to make the mistake,
but it could also be the band too. A lot of it's the band. Like I said, when we
Well, a lot
had,
of it is, and Scott Burns will admit that too, that he let, you know, he wasn't like a real he didn't insert himself into a lot of like the songwriting or anything like that. He just wanted to engineer and make the bands happy, right?
so a lot of bands will get into the habit when they're in the studio. They'll get addicted to like producing and like making them change shit, and then they hear their music
Mhm.
change before their ears, and they're like, "Oh, that's
Mhm.
cool." But then after it's all said and done, you're like, "Oh shit."
Mhm.
So that's kind of what happened with the Disordered CD. It turned out to be a little more flat than we'd hoped for because we were
Mhm.
kind of tweaking things. And then Carnal Decimate, I did that demo, and there were like, I told you this story before. There were like 4 or 5 guys or more in like the studio doing like backup vocals on one song because they were all just like having fun screaming into the mic. I'm like, okay, all you
Mhm.
guys get the fuck out of here. And I told Tony, the producer, I'm like, cut all that shit out. Just stop that. I want
Mhm.
Matt from Disordered to go in there. That was my plan originally. Matt's going to
Mhm.
go in there and do some death metal growls because only Matt can do that. And they're from Disordered, who are well known right now. Fuck off, get out of here.
Mhm.
So there you go. That's what we did. And like that's why you have someone else come with you to kind of rein in the production from the label, maybe or from
Mhm.
somewhere. And that's what I did. And I also made it sound like it so it wasn't like this super heavy. Like they're going heavier, heavier, louder. I'm like, well, hold on, guys. You
Right.
can't have it super pristine because the average metal guy that's going to buy this has a piece of shit car like mine. So let's go listen to it in my car, see how it sounds right now.
Right.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. Okay, then let's leave it. Don't fuck with it. Doesn't need to be heavier. Bottom end, everything like up the
Mhm.
iron. It's just like let it go like this, and it's going to be perfect. And sure enough, it got rave reviews. Everybody loved that demo. It sold out.
Mhm.
And too bad the band
Yeah.
broke up. But it's just an
Like and
example.
and it's a fine line. Like I mean, it's you know, and that's why like to just say that, to kind of do a blanket of like, oh, Scott Burns production sucks or whatever. Like, dude, the amount of albums he's got under his belt is incredible,
Oh, I
and
know he's
yeah,
done
there
a
might be a
bunch, but
few
there's
misses.
also there's a guy from England who had the Slaughterhouse Studios, and he's the one who did all the grindcore bands. Colin Richardson, he did like
Yeah,
Napalm
Colin
Death,
Richardson.
Bolt Thrower, like Carcass, and all the grindcore bands started going there to that guy. Same thing. It was
Well,
like they all started to kind of sound samey.
Cannibal Corpse recorded with Colin Richardson too.
Oh, did they? I didn't know that. Which album?
I think it was, oh fuck, what was it?
Was it a Barnes album or later?
No, it was a Corpse Grinder album. I want to say Gorpsist, but I think that was Neil Kiernan.
That's another one. Neil Kernon was a big guy for a while there. Like there
Yeah.
was a few bands from here who went to him, I think, too, didn't they?
I know
Salt
Category
Lake.
5. We wanted to go to Neil Kiernan,
Yeah,
but
I
we
said I
couldn't
remember.
afford it.
I thought Category 5 had something to do
Mhm.
with that, or they were
I
going
think
to.
Dustin talked to him, but it's interesting with Neil Kiernan. Like some of the albums he produced were like Hall and Oates, and Dawkins,
Did,
and yeah,
yeah,
he was
didn't
like
he
a
do
pop guy.
Anthrax or something? Or
Well, he was like a pop guy, like a
I thought he did Anthrax, and I thought he did Exhumed, like that one anatomical something that Exhumed did that was like their weird one-off album that was like kind of like rockish. Is
it was
that what?
so Bloodthirst was the album by Cannibal Corpse that Colin Richardson did.
No. Did
Um,
they go to England or did he come here?
I think he came here. I think they were recording it at oh, where did they record it at? I think that was I don't know. I don't know where it was recorded. I know oh, okay, yeah, they were recording in Texas at the time. A place called
Mm.
Village Productions. Great album. And once again, it's just like it's a Cannibal Corpse album produced by Colin Richardson, but it's undeniably like it's just Cannibal Corpse. If you like Cannibal Corpse, you're gonna like the album.
So getting back to some of the releases of 23 is like I told you, I was watching this video channel I have on my Roku app, my Roku device thing, and I have this video channel thing on there I didn't know I had. So I watched the Blood Blind. Is that the song?
Blood, yeah, yeah,
Cannibal Corpse.
yeah. And you said it was pretty good, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm going to rush out and buy the album, although it wouldn't. I wouldn't mind hearing it, but it was totally not what I was expecting. It was like slower, kind of chuggy, mid-tempo, heavy as
Mm-hmm.
fuck. The vocals were like way heavier,
Mm-hmm.
and the video was just kind of cool. It was shot like the movie Seven. It was like that weird jiggly frame thing with like the weird static and like but it was red instead of the green tint. It was fit Corpse perfectly, but the song was like not what I expected. It was like heavier, kind of darker, actually a little bit darker, just more just brutally heavy, not like brutal like how I
Not
used
just
to
pure.
describe Cannibal Corpse, but brutal like just really dark and heavy.
Right, but
So
the
it
thing
wasn't
is
too
like
bad.
every Cannibal Corpse has sort of that element to it where they slow down and they're just like chugging and just kind of grooving your head off. But yeah, Private Eyes by Hall & Oates was produced by Neil Kiernan. Isn't that wild? That like down the road he'd be doing Wretched Spawn by Cannibal Corpse after Hall & Oates. Pretty
Yeah,
rad.
that's funny that you mentioned Hall and Oates. Is
I love Hall & Oates, by the way. They're
what's
really
going on
good.
with them? Have you heard that story? How Daryl Hall is suing John Oates about their catalog being dispersed on the internet?
I heard, I don't know if I knew anything about it, but I remember like just scrolling past a headline that said something like Daryl Hall has like a restraining order against John, or he's the one
He's
with the
suing
mustache.
him to stop him from disseminating their catalog on his own to
Mm,
some streaming service. And I think either Daryl Hall wants to do it or they want to do it collectively. And John Oates is, I guess, just trying to do it. But at this point, who gives a fuck? I mean, they're kind of over now. I mean,
yeah, but
I
they're a
don't know.
legacy band. I mean, their back catalog's worth a ton of money. To
Well,
if
that's
it's
what I mean. That's what it's all about. But he's trying to sue him to prevent him from doing that. He's trying to sue Oates from doing that. And I'm not sure where it's been left at, but it's like they're not necessarily like having a bitter feud, is how I took it to be when I read the story.
hmm they're just
But
trying to
they're,
figure it out.
yeah, I mean, it's weird. I'm like, they're just amicably like suing each other. Like, what the fuck? How do you do that? And just, okay, like it's a weird story. And like, there's been a few more like updates that I haven't really read, but I posted the original one on my Facebook page because I was just like, this is weird. And, like, no one fucking like responded. I'm like, okay, well, fuck all of you. But it was
Yeah.
just goes to show that again, you have that whole like that bullshit with like it wasn't Spotify, but it was another streaming service. But that's just what it comes down to is who's in control and who's going to get all the money. And like, I don't even think you get money from any streaming services these days. It's
Well, you do, but it's like fractions of a penny
well,
for
that's
every
what I'm
stream.
saying. It's
Which
like it's negligible. But for a bigger band like Hall and Oates, it might amount to something. But I can't see there's going to be that much, or is it? It's
yeah.
it's funny because we've got we hired some new kids at the barbecue where I work, and like one of them was giving me shit because she heard me listening to Pandora. She's like, "Oh my God, Pandora's old." I'm like, "Oh fuck, here we go. Now you can't listen to Pandora because it's old, quote unquote." So she like lays into me about Pandora, that you should use Spotify, and then that was the trigger phrase that I needed to hear, and I just like relentlessly like laid into this little 16-year-old girl just annihilated her about Spotify and the bands and the fraction of the penny, and like she was just kind of wide-eyed staring at me like, oh fuck, and like everybody's just giggling around me because they know that's just not to talk to me about that shit.
Poor girl.
No, I felt bad later. I went up to her later. I'm like, hey, look, I was just giving you shit. You know, we all love you here, and like it's just you know. And she was like horrified that she crossed the line. I'm like, you did cross the line, but yeah, that's just saying. Like, but it was, I'm like, oh, Pandora's old. Like, okay. Like, she's like, well, it's made for old people. I'm like, why is it made for old people? What does that mean? Like, kids listen to Pandora too, and you all started out there, so fuck you. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, it's just older now, and like it's obsolete. I'm like, so okay, you're telling me that pants are obsolete because people make pants and old people wear pants, as do young ones. So are pants obsolete? Is driving a car obsolete? What the fuck are you talking about? This listening to music. Fuck you. And then she said, do you have iTunes? So I brought up my phone, and I don't have iMusic, but I have like the iPhone, the app, the music app on my phone.
Dude, I can't get iTunes on my phone to save my life. For some reason, I lost my old like credentials to get in, and I've bought
you gotta like get
hundreds
your password.
of albums.
It's a bitch.
I can't get onto it, and there's so many albums I've purchased that are loaded onto iTunes that I don't know how to even access anymore. Some
Maybe
that
I'll
I
let
can't
you
find
talk to Spencer. He might be able to help you. He's an iGenius, but
Is he? Okay.
But I told her, she's looking at my phone. She's like, oh, you have iMusic? I'm like, no, I don't. She tried to find something that she liked. I'm like, well, no, I don't have that bullshit. She's like, well, what is all this? I'm like, this is music I bought and paid for that I have on hard copy. And I put it on my phone. And she rolled her eyes at that. I'm like, you're fucking, get out of here, you stupid child. You don't know anything. Like, so it was just dumb. I'm like, these fucking kids suck these days. Kids are fucking stupid. Like, you'll never know. Never. Like, I have everything at my fingertips. I listen to fucking whatever the fuck, Moesha Gonzalez, whoever the fuck is the most popular soulless, bland pop star right now. But
I don't know.
But I got a funny story about speaking of how you can't figure out your password. You got to find your password if they can send it back to you, because that's, or maybe it's your iCloud password, because I had trouble with that for a while too.
No idea. I think
Yeah,
it's like
it's
I
a
think
little
it's attached
confusing.
to like an old Hotmail account that I never use anymore. That I don't.
Yeah, that's what sucks, is they'll send it there and you can't remember that either. My mom does that
right?
shit. All these people will go over to my mom's house and go, no, here's what you need to do. And they'll make her a new email account with a new password that they made up, and you can never figure it out. My mom does not know shit about that stuff. She knows remote controls. That's it. And even then, that's pushing it. Like, she has no fucking clue about the phone. So these people keep changing her shit for her. And like, my sisters buy her all these gimmicky things like, yeah, look at your phone. It'll remember your face. That's how you unlock your phone. I'm like, no one needs to lock her phone. She's sitting by herself in the house all day watching game shows. She doesn't need to fucking have her phone locked. She's not going to figure it out. Fucking back off with this stupid horse shit. Like, I don't need these gimmicks and shit they do on the iPhone. It's so fucking dumb. But listen to this story. Like, I was trying to clean up my old iPhone 5 to give to the restaurant so they could play Pandora, because it's old, in the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm taking all my stuff off of there, and it's still not completely off of there. It's like it's never like going to be off of there completely. And I've noticed that when you do delete something, it takes it off of your other stuff too, like my iPad,
yes, because everything's synced up.
Yeah, I know, but I'm like, I want it off this phone. I'm like, return this phone to factory settings, take all my shit off. And no, I still get emails that pop up on that phone that are like from today, and like my music playlists are still in there. Like, there's shit that I make in my notes on my current phone that goes into the notes on that phone. I'm like, God damn it, man. But I was trying to get rid of some old videos of like me and my ex-girlfriend. And I thought, I'll upload these to the cloud. How about that? Like the iCloud, which I don't normally use. I have an
Here's a
external
tip.
hard drive.
Uploading something to the cloud is not getting rid of something.
I know that, but you're keeping it there so that you can access it there. It's like a make-believe like storage device, right?
Okay, yeah, so you don't want to get rid of it. You want it.
Yeah, I'm keeping it there, and I moved it there, and then I did this at work one day, and 5 seconds later, my niece immediately is texting me frantically. I'm like, what? It's like, you just sent a porn video to the entire family. I'm like, what? I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, and she's like, I deleted it. Don't worry, but God, don't, whatever you're doing, stop doing it. And she's like, I caught it and I deleted it. But I think her fiance's family fucking saw that in fucking Indiana or somewhere, wherever the fuck they're from. I'm like, what
Oh
the
yeah.
fuck? So it turns out that we were in a shared folder, and somehow it asked you if you wanted to put this into a shared folder. I'm like, well, I'm going on the cloud, my cloud, right?
Hmm.
Okay, and I just did that, and it immediately sent this porn to my mom, my other sisters, but my niece caught it, so no one saw it except for her new in-laws, and they kind of, and you don't see my face in it, but I'm just like, fuck. God
Hmm.
damn it, iPhone bullshit, man. You can't figure that shit out. Even guys I know who are tech heads can't figure out the fucking cloud. Like they know some of it, but like they're never 100%. It's just like, so I say don't put shit on the cloud. Put it on your fucking computer at home or on your external hard drive or on a fucking CD. Because I'm old, but I'm also safe, except for
Hmm.
that. But I mean, I dodged a bullet there, but fucking stupid. I'm like, fuck digital bullshit, man. And it's so dumb. Getting back to that, buy fucking CDs, all of you. Slaughterhouserex.storeenvy.com. Go there or Bandcamp. Fuck your digital bullshit.
As
Right, Marc?
Bandcamp is digital.
Well, you have digital files there, but you have the means to buy hard copies, and all my stuff that has hard copies are on Bandcamp.
Well, I'd argue that like buy merch. Just doesn't matter if it's the CD because like look, I listen to almost everything digitally. Um,
I can understand
buy
that.
buy
I
buy a
do the
shirt,
same thing, but
buy the
I
shirt,
bought a
buy the
shirt from
vinyl.
Black Moriah and I bought a CD, and like I said, in hindsight, I should have bought the records, like some stuff to sell, as well as get you the album, because I know you want to get some vinyl collections going. I think you like the Black Moriah; they're pretty good. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, I didn't know that my noise order wasn't coming. That got stolen or whatever the fuck. But be all that as it may, yeah. So anyway, yeah, Cannibal Corpse 2023. There you
Yeah,
go, and a bunch of black metal demos.
Cannibal Corpse. Well, no, you got Dying Fetus. Make them beg for death. Forgot the
Then there's a couple of like books that came out, like David Vincent's book came out, I think, or did that come out the year before?
came out. That came out almost like 3 years ago. You
Oh,
have a.
really?
Remember I gave you a copy.
I know, but it feels like that was only like last year or something that you gave it to me. But I guess it wasn't this year. But
No, but there is a Scott Burns biography that just came out, so I'm interested in checking that out.
that
Um,
might be an interesting read. But yeah, I'm not a fan of his work, to be honest. But like I said, I bought Shane Embry's book. Shane is the bass player from Napalm Death. He's been in Brujeria. He's been in a tons of other bands. Lockup, Unseen Terror. There's a couple of side projects of his own that he does. I mean, Shane's been around.
mhm.
And I'm reading his book, and I'm just like, well, it's cool to hear these stories about Napalm Death and stuff, but really, it's kind of like, it's not really a whole lot there going on in the book. And I'm just like, well, okay. It wasn't like, kind of like as crazy as I thought it would be. And it's just like a lot of these guys write books because they want to talk about how they were crazy and they started out poor, then they were doing crazy drugs, then they met someone and they settled down and
Mhm.
have a family, but they still love metal. I'm like, yeah, okay, happy ending, all right, and I guess I don't know. I'm just expecting something a little more different, from the guy who was in Napalm Death all this time. But I mean, there was interesting stuff in there for sure. Like he was in Brujeria and all these other bands, and
Yeah.
you kind of get some stories like that. For the most part, though, it's kind of a little boring. I'm like, wow, I guess.
Did you read the David Vincent book, or I remember
No,
you
I
were
did.
kind of
I read David's book, and I remember you said you really loved it, and I was just kind of
you
like,
thought it was a little too Tony Robbins for you.
well, he starts to get preachy and stuff, and that's the thing is people write books because they have a shitty something or other in their life. And David didn't have a shitty life. He said, "I don't have a shitty life." I know other books are like guys who have shitty lives, and then they find something, and they come back and they're
I think
drug
that
free.
I think that's what makes his book kind of interesting is because it isn't typical. It's not like there's not like that rock bottom arc. I mean, yeah, he had obstacles and shit like that, but there was never just like, I was suicidal, I was strung out on drugs and blah blah blah, and now I'm, redemptive. It was really just like kind of a consistent like I just fought my way through everything. So I in a
Well,
way,
yeah,
I
no,
think
I mean
that's
it was
actually
cool
pretty
for
unique.
that. It was cool for that, but it was just like part of the thing that bugged me is he had lyrics to all of his songs, like in
Hmm.
every Morbid Angel song's lyrics was in the book. If you take those out, the
I
book would
like
be
that.
like 2/3 less of a book than it is. I'm like, well, okay, I don't need to read the whole lyrics.
Well, right,
And
but you
most of
know,
them are just
think
like
about it.
rape the priest and kill the nun, all that shit from the early. I'm like, those are kind of whatever lyrics, but he's like talking about how much they
But,
mean to him. I'm like,
but
okay, well,
think about it like this though. Like for someone who's not even familiar with like Morbid Angel or anything like that, just reading that book, I think the lyrics are actually a very good addition to it. And he's a hell of a lyricist. Why not? That stuff's poetry to me. He could put out a
I
whole
gotta
book of
admit, like
poetry.
lyrics to me are meaningless. I just don't give a fuck about
No,
lyrics. Never
me
did, never will.
me too. But when they're good, they're
The more poetic they are, the less I'm interested. I like straight up front,
seriously.
fuck this guy, fuck that guy. Like
No, I
that's
don't. I don't. And that's why I like. I think both him and Steve Tucker just write these incredibly beautiful, dark, literary almost
if
like
you like that
lyrics.
kind of stuff, you should read Dark Throne's lyrics because Fenris, the drummer, has written their lyrics from day
Mhm.
one, and he's very poetic like
Oh,
that.
if,
It's
if
not what
anything,
you think.
that's what I like about a lot of the black metals because the lyrics are so uh,
That's why it's funny
just.
because Dark Throne does shit like Canadian metal and songs like that, but yet his lyrics for their real music is like really a lot more poetic and just like this strange dark poetry. And
Mhm.
but David's book, I was just like, it's the same thing. It's like it was just I don't know. I was expecting something totally different. I guess maybe from reading Kiss books, I'm expecting like all these crazy raunchy stories, and then something at the end where like shit happens and they gotta like really regroup and like get serious about things and grow up a little bit.
Mhm.
David's book was like seriously like the last quarter of it was like all just like this. What would be the word? Like this self-help kind of thing, and like just really gushy like inner peace and light and harmony and all that. And I mean that's
Mhm.
cool. Like he found what he needed and he's doing whatever. But
Yeah.
just like, all right, well, it didn't. It felt to me like he needed to get that off his chest, but it wasn't really particularly like super interesting to the reader. And that was the same thing I felt about like Shane's book because he's now had a wife and he's got two little kids. It's like kind of changed who he is, and
Mhm.
I'm like, well, that's cool, and I'm happy for you, Shane. But at the same time, like, it wasn't like the most interesting thing I've ever read. But
Yeah.
although I will say this, I shouldn't bash on it because I mentioned in the back of the book.
Nice. See.
There's a
Um.
whole list of people that like contributed to the project, so it's not like he talked about me specifically, but there's like a list of people in the
Yeah.
back, and I didn't know I
Kind
was
of
going to
like
be
a
put in
special
there like
things.
that, but I did. So I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
So I just,
But to me, a lot of times that's what's interesting to me. So like like maybe even take David Vincent. The fact that he's the vocalist of one of the pioneers of extreme metal, and when they sort of conduct themselves almost in an opposite manner, like in their personal life, where they kind of just have it together, or it's sort of normal. To me, that actually makes it interesting because of the contrast. You know, yeah, David Vincent, raises cattle and kind of has a little farm and everything. I think that's actually incredibly interesting in contrast to like the dark, evil music that he makes. I like
yeah,
that.
well,
To me, it would almost be less interesting if if his whole thing was just like, yeah, and then I fucking was all, like caused all this trouble, like my whole life is just this nihilistic, anti-society, you know what I mean? That's almost like predictable.
well, I mean, I don't think anybody's ever really done a book like that. I mean, everybody's like, if they've had that stuff, they at the end they turn around and like they had a near death experience or something where they're like, oh
Hmm.
shit, I better like change. And
Hmm.
like Nikki Six did that, didn't he? And like,
I hate it. I read the Nikki Sixx biography, and it was
he
to
hated
me,
it.
well, to me, it was almost like his heroin diaries. That's what his thing was. Um, to me, I think most of it was just fiction because I don't know any heroin addict that kept such, detailed diaries of every day of their life. I'm like, no, this ain't.
Maybe he did, but I mean, you also just remember shit because it's so epic. Like I wrote my book, and I haven't published it, but like I remember everything that happened in there, like pretty much verbatim as it happened. But I also wasn't on drugs, but
Hmm.
like all the girls I was with in Salt Lake City, because it's such a dry place with such a dry perception of what it's like here by outsiders, and it's really not. It's like a crazy fucking debauchery place here. It's like a
Oh yeah.
amusement park sometimes, but like I just remember shit that happened. I mean, that's
Hmm.
maybe he just remembers it because it was so crazy.
Maybe.
Well, anyways, Shane's book. I read Shane's book, and he goes into detail
Wait,
about like the
Shane
early
who again?
Shane Embury. He is the bass player of Napalm Death, and he
Okay.
has been since pretty much since day one. I mean, early on he wasn't in the band, but
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
he,
he's kind of like the iconic looking guy from like the frizzy.
yeah, he's got a huge fro, and these days it's like really falling down. He's like going bald. I'm kind of
Yeah,
thinking,
but you know what?
time to shave.
No, I love the fact that he kind of just owns it. Like,
Yeah, he doesn't
yeah,
give a
man.
fuck. Well, he does a lot of stuff. He talks about the grindcore scene. It's cool. Like most of the book's really good. It's just like, usually when people start talking about like what happens later on in their life. Yeah, I take that back. Actually, most of the book was pretty good early on because he talks about Napalm Death, how extreme they were and how crazy they were, just like the music and how they had to put up with everybody didn't take them serious because they had 1 second long songs. But for those of us who got it, like the intensity was there, he was like really into it. And they talk about like being on shows, like TV shows, because there was a show, like a kids music show that Napalm Death were on. And it's funny because that led to, and that's something I want to talk to you about, is like metal people who appear in like TV shows and movies. What do you think about that?
I
Do
mean,
you know much about it?
has there been that many?
Probably more than you think. Like I said, we had like Iggy Pop. Not or just rock people too, but like Iggy Pop has been on Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. He was in a few movies. Tom Petty was in a movie with Kevin Costner where he played Tom Petty. You remember that?
Hmm, I don't.
There's a movie called The Postman. It's like this apocalyptic movie series that Costner did, like after Waterworld.
Yeah.
And The Postman's about how Earth has been like just destroyed. Something happened. Like people are kind of like living in little pockets everywhere. He finds a mail bag and he starts going around delivering the mail like to these people at these addresses, and people are getting excited, like, oh fuck, the mail's up and running. Then he realizes by doing that, like everybody gets excited and people start coming back to life. But one of these little pockets of humanity is led by Tom Petty. So Kevin Costner's like, hey, aren't you? And Tom Petty's like, no, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Yeah, but that's me. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck Tom Petty. Like, what? He's like this god even in the afterlife. Like, fuck off.
Hmm.
But that was that. But what I was getting at was Carcass appeared on a show from in England called Red Dwarf. Have you ever seen that?
Carcass was on Red Dwarf?
Do you know Red Dwarf, the
Of
show?
course, yeah, I love that show. It's funny.
You don't remember?
Hey, Rima, don't be a smeghead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rimmer, Lister, Crichton, and the cat.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
I,
there's
I
an
I don't I don't
episode.
remember that episode with
Well, Rimmer, or
Carcass.
not Rimmer, but Lister, who is played by Craig Charles, the
Hmm.
black guy with the dreadlocks. Well, he doesn't really
Hmm.
have dreadlocks, but he's a host of that children's show that Napalm Death appeared on. And they were on there and they played one of their short songs and they kind of laughed, but they actually played another song. And he was like, wow. And he was that guy, Craig Charles, that plays Lister, was super into grindcore.
Really?
And he read their lyrics on that show. He's like, and I remember it was your pride. Why should your pride be so restricted? It's like the first song on From Enslavement to Obliteration, the second Napalm Death album.
Hmm.
And he was reading it like, oh, those are great lyrics. And he was super into the music. And Napalm Death were supposed to be on Red Dwarf by Craig Charles, who was the star of the show.
Hmm.
And they couldn't do it, but they got Jeff Walker and Bill Steer of Carcass to do it. And so they're on there.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's an episode, I think, called Time Slip, where they go back in time. And it's funny because they go back in time to Lister. Craig Charles's character, he has a band, they're playing in a pub, but the backup band is the guys from Carcass.
Hmm.
But they're not playing grindcore, they're just doing something silly. But it's Jeff Walker on the bass and Bill Steers on the drum set, actually. and they were called Smeg and the Heads on that show, but it was Carcass.
Very cool, man.
So I have that on DVD. I have Red Dwarf on DVD. It's a great show. It's really
Oh, I love
funny.
Red Dwarf. Yeah, no, it's really good. I remember, like, it's, in fact, Red Dwarf, like, especially like when I was in high school, that was almost like a comfort show. Like, I'd know, like, on Friday night, I don't have to school in the morning, da 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 da. I'd come home and just put it on public television, right? It was on Channel 7 or something.
Yeah, it was on
And
Channel 7.
there'd be like a marathon of Red Dwarf, and it was just like, I don't know, it's just
Yeah, the
awesome.
first few seasons are really hard to swallow, like your basic British humor, like really dry, like
I love that though.
referential. But by about season 3 or 4, that's when they really picks up, and Crichton becomes part of the crew, and you get the really clever ideas, like Lister becomes God, or like the universe is really in his pants, and all that crazy shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Another one I
it's a
liked was
great show, but yeah,
Blackadder. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Another
There's a lot
classic.
of British
Another.
comedies I watched. Blackadder wasn't one of my favorites, but I would watch it now and then. But Mr. Bean was always really funny.
Uh,
I'd watch Are You Being Served? Mr. Humphreys, are you free? You remember that one?
I
It's all the
vaguely.
people in the department store. It was like in the early 70s. It was like
Oh,
that.
are you being served?
Yeah, Are You Being Served? There was a gay man, a straight
Yeah.
women's
Oh,
man. There was an
hello,
old lady,
Captain.
an old
Yeah,
man, and
Captain Peacock.
Captain Peacock. Yep.
And then I think the ultimate is Faulty Towers, though. That one is just outstanding. Anyways, we're
British
off the rails.
humor can be dry, but there's other times when it's like extremely clever and it's really funny. And Red Dwarf is like that. Like every episode, it makes you wonder how they actually write it, because it's so just sneaky and clever. And just having Carcass on it was like, oh my god, that's Jeff Walker and Bill Steer. What the fuck? I remember one time Earache Records used to have a Q&A thing on their website where you could like put a question on the website, and Dig, the owner of the record label, would answer it. And I mentioned that one. He's like, "Hey, yeah, well spotted. That was Carcass." And then he told me the whole story about that kids show that Napalm Death were on. And I looked it up, and sure enough, they were there with the guy who played Lister.
Yeah.
But Shane mentions that in his book, and he mentions a few other things that they were going to do that Barney didn't want to do, because Barney, the singer, was kind of like more serious about it. And so there is a lot of good stuff in the book. It just seems like towards the end, they kind of don't know how to tie it up, I guess. But he talks about his family and stuff, so it's kind of like, yeah, okay. And then David Vincent's book is like that, but I think David's was kind of a letdown to me, because he just kind of wasn't really doing anything in music, and he wasn't in Morbid Angel anymore. I'm like, well, why are you just letting it run off your back? Like, wasn't Morbid Angel him and Trey starting it, and he just kind of walked away from it, and it was kind of disappointing, But,
Yeah.
but
Wish
you
we'll ever
liked it
go
a lot.
back.
You liked that book a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought it was like I said, it's almost a self-help book in a way, So there's that element to it, and like I said, yeah, his arc isn't one that's like, like you said, get strung out on drugs or anything like that. Although, I think he mentions that they played a role. He did his share of experimenting and all that, but he seemed to, he was so focused on, the music side of things that he never let it really take over. I
Yeah.
think that's commendable.
I don't really want to read about people's like drug debaucheries and stuff, but I mean, you want to hear
That's
some
what
of
so
that.
many of them are, like, especially like, and I enjoy the book still, but like it's so like almost same story over and over again, like like the Stephen Piercy story or the Sebastian Bach story, kind of just the same thing,
Yeah.
like
Well,
strung
like
out of
take
drugs.
like Are You Morbid, the Tom Warrior book. You started reading that and then you moved away, so you gave it back to me. But that's kind of a good book. He doesn't have drugs in his past, and
Oh yeah,
he's
I
just
was I
talking
was
about
enjoying
like
that one.
the music. Like it's strictly about the band, the career of the band, how they became so influential, and like how Into the Pandemonium was so stressful to record. Then he did Cold Lake, and that was stressful. And then he like realized he'd fucked up. I mean, that's a cool story all the way through. And that's what I mean. It didn't have to end in like self-help or like, oh, now I have
Mhm.
kids, I'm happy, and I don't play music, and I'm a family man. And I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. Everybody has their own story. I mean, it's all good, but
Mhm.
some of them just kind of end more like kind of bland than others. I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know.
Speaking of stories ending and being bland, we've been at
What's
this for
that? Are
about
you
an
writing
hour
a book?
20. No,
You're writing a book? Marc Hansen, My Life Story,
I
Chapter
should
1,
though, huh?
The End.
That's
Is it
right.
is it time for you to go? Is that what you're trying to say?
Dude, man. It's been like
We didn't
fucking
do
an hour.
our top best albums of 2023.
Oh, there isn't any. Everybody's done that. That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
forget it.
fuck other podcasts. They suck. We just
Right?
talk shit, or I talk shit about everything, and you try to like
Yeah.
sweep up the mess. Like, no, it's not true. That's not right.
I'm
Scott
trying to
Burns is
set your
really
ass
good. He's a
straight. I
great
know.
producer.
Yeah, he is. We owe a lot to Scott Burns.
Not really.
Yeah, really. So how
There was
about it?
something else that we were supposed to talk about. What was it?
Oh, was it?
So I told you I went to. Oh, there was one last thing. Is like Kiss wrapped up their farewell tour finally.
Oh yeah, yeah. My sister went to it. Show was great.
Yeah,
Yeah, she had a lot of fun.
I don't
What do
think
you
they
think?
can here.
Well, okay, so I hear they're gonna try to continue using, and like I said, I haven't read too much about it, but like Kiss avatars.
Yeah, that's why I like mentioned it because that's the first thing that popped up on Blabbermouth. I'm like, what are they? What like are these the laser imaging thing, like the Dio concert? Is that what they're trying to do?
I'm guessing so. So yeah, so they're using like some kind of digital.
So basically, what we're saying
So
is they
basically,
found a way.
they're becoming Death Clock. I think. Like they're just gonna become a cartoon or something.
They just found a way to continue making money off their music, but without actually going out and playing it now.
Yeah,
Is
why
that
not?
what we're saying?
More power to them.
I don't know. Like it seems like everybody's like bashing on him for that. I haven't really read too much into it, but
Why is anybody like? Is anybody surprised?
no,
That's a
not at
total
all.
Kiss move.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, why not? I wonder if they'll put out albums. Like new albums at all.
probably
Probably.
not. But I bet they'll probably do their solo stuff. But now it's funny because if you just get on Facebook, for example, which of course because we're old and we use Facebook and not Snapchat or whatever the fuck it is now. There's like ads for Kiss everything. Like there's toys, there's statues, there's plaques, there's gold. I'm like, there's all this shit. Like now they're really onslaughting with the merchandise. It's like crazy
Well, yeah.
because now everybody's
They got
oh
to
they're
change the
broken up. You
business
got to get
model.
this. You got to get this. I'm like no, I don't. Oh, and then one last thing is KK Downing says Judas Priest Point of Entry is the worst album he ever made.
I saw
Boom!
that. Nah, that's. I mean, I didn't read the article, but it's kind of a weird one to pick. I think I would say Rockarola, but
No way.
no, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I think Point of Entry is a great album.
Of course, because you like all those sellout albums by bands. Yeah,
Yeah.
poser.
No, I mean, their best album was
You need to
Turbo.
read Rob and KK's book. Maybe I'll get you that for Christmas since my Noise Records thing went into the abyss. Rob and KK's books, they both talk about that record, and neither one of them have much love for it because it's exactly what it is. It's like an attempt to cash in on American pop. That's all it
And
is.
I don't want to hear them bash that.
Well, you're going to hear it. They don't bash it. I mean, they just like reflect on it and say, yeah, it wasn't our best, and that's what we were doing at the time was trying to become pop stars. But anyway, all right,
Uh,
fella. I guess what it's Christmas next weekend, huh?
yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, my plans to send you a nice surprise gift have been foiled by thieves. So I
That's
guess
okay.
back to back to the drawing board. So
Yeah. Have you ever had do you think I'll ever watch that DVD I sent you?
Oh, I keep forgetting it's there, actually. I should watch that tonight. It's like under a pile of mail. I've just been busy as fuck. It's been crazy
Oh,
busy at the restaurant, so I kind of
nope, nope,
forgot you sent it.
no pressure. I'm curious if you think, like, I think it's a pretty good representation of how metalheads really are. You
Heavy
know?
trip.
Yeah,
How metalheads really are.
yeah. How they're actually just kind of just sweet, innocent. You know?
Watching game shows with their mom and taking them to the grocery store and
Precisely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you get a chance, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. But like I said, no pressure.
I want to say I've seen that, but maybe I haven't. Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie, but
You have to watch it with subtitles. It's not in English. It's Finnish,
oh, as all good metal is
right?
from Europe,
Mm-hmm.
who would know better?
Mm-mm.
All right, pal. Well,
Okay.
do you have anything to say to your listeners? It's been 2 solid years of doing this show,
To our
but only
listener.
one of them being posted. What?
You mean listener?
Well, I called both of them and told them that we were doing this
Uh,
for 2 years, both our listeners. Like one guy
wow.
wasn't home, the other one was like, "Yeah, that's cool."
Hard to believe it's been 2 years. I can't believe how fast it's grown.
Oh yeah.
No, it's all good.
Well, you
Keep
know that when
listening.
I do post these, like sometimes it'll be like a few listens the next day. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's getting out there.
Yeah.
All
Sooner or
right.
later, it's going to make its way to Gene Simmons. He's going to hear all the shit that I've been talking and try and sue me.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
I'll say OJ on the air, and he'll make $5. Then I'll be his best friend. Oh shit!
Right.
I just said it. God
Shit.
damn it! All
All
right,
right.
pal.
Okay, dude. We'll
Watch out for
talk.
the skinwalkers.